right, guys, Dominick Izzo, Wing Chun out here in Chicago. Thank you to Jay. Is it Angel? I know I'm mispronouncing the way that you spelled the name, but Jay Angel or Jay Angel for this suggestion on to review this. This is actually a very important topic. And I'm glad you actually sent me this video just a few minutes ago. You sent 29 minutes ago. He's like, Dom, got a good one for you to review. It's the name of the channel is Armchair Violence. The guy is critical of a lot of martial arts, and he gets in all kind of topic, even how swords work. His most recent is Wing Chun is wrong, Centerline is fake and made up. It's 6.5 minutes. You got to do this one. I went there and I started to look at this guy's stuff, and I'm going to tell you, this is Centerline theory is fake and made up. The channel is Armchair Violence. I'm literally 24 seconds. I paused it right where I stopped before I decided to make this video, and he's right. I needed 24 seconds of this to kind of know that I'm going to agree with what this guy says in his video. So I want to hear in completion in real time with you guys as far as what he has to say about Centerline theory is fake and made up. And he's got the caption of Wing Chun is wrong. So sadly, I think I'm going to agree with a lot of what he says here. And then I'm going to give the reason why. Part of this too, I want to back up for this for a second. And I know that I'm getting far deep into the Bruce Lee stuff lately, and I want to pose this for a second. If you know traditional martial arts, you do, what did Bruce Lee say? And I'm going to use this argument against him. Bruce Lee was quoted for saying, I don't fear the man who practices 10,000 techniques once, but I fear the man who practices one technique 10,000 times. I don't know. I'm sure he plagiarized that as he did with almost everything he did. Sorry, fanboys, but he was a walking plagiarist. It's true. And if that's the case, when you're in an art and you need 10,000 repetitions, do you not think that to learn a specific punch or a movement, those 10,000 reps are going to cost you months, days, weeks, years of training? And when you have somebody like Bruce Lee who says, I don't teach traditional and classical forms, the biggest problem with what he left behind is when you learn how to do X, Y, and Z, then you make it yours. Guys, I'm sorry to tell you, for those of you who are in Jeet Kune Do who do not have a totality level of understanding the syllabus of Wing Chun, you will never, your Wing Chun, your JKD doesn't exist. How could Bruce Lee, and I don't want to make this about him, he only had 3 years of training. Is it agreeable that he probably missed a ton of shit in Wing Chun that later on, he threw this out, Bruce threw this out? Because he didn't fucking know how to apply it. So if you guys are going to create your curriculums and you have a full curriculum that you are charging money for, advancing your students for, giving them the rank of instructor, they have to complete your curriculum. But you follow the instructions of a man who didn't even follow the curriculum of what he began to begin with and then created something else. So the point is this, I'm going to tell you, the first 24 seconds of this guy's video is the problem in Wing Chun right here. And I'll explain why. It's because nobody fucking takes the time to train for the self-perfection, hours and hours and hours. And then you wonder why your shit doesn't work. You never see Wing Chun work in the MMA. I've never seen anybody who is a full, invested, fighting Wing Chun knows that. Yeah, yes, it has. Sean fucking McGuire. Sean McGuire of Naptown Wing Chun shut every mixed martial artist down who stood in front of him. Steven, if he ever puts his student Steven in MMA, everybody's fucked. If Steven from Naptown Wing Chun ever decided to go fight professionally, dude, it's game over. So don't tell me that it doesn't work. But Sean, Clint, Casey, Steven, all the Naptown people, they train religiously for perfection and then they apply it. You guys don't do that. You just don't. Let's hear what this guy say.
And its descendant arts One of the most important principles of Wing Chun and its descendant arts like Jeet Kune Do is centerline theory. Centerline theory is the idea that there's an imaginary line that runs down the axis of my body and the axis of my opponent's body. The plane that connects these two lines is the center line. Yes, the center line is actually a center plane. I didn't make up the name. The theory states that controlling the center line will allow you to deflect nearly all of your opponent's attacks while quickly delivering your own. And yes, there's other terminology about central lines, mother lines, controlling your opponent's center.
Here's where it gets confusing, and the William Chung lineage confused it. Center line is a concept. But again, you can't teach a concept to a new student, right? Because you're taught Wing Chun is advanced martial arts because it's the graduate school of martial arts. I'm sorry to tell you this for those who don't know. You are learning theory. You're learning how to violate the same rules that you've learned, right? Once you learn the rules, you learn how to bend them, break them, make them yours. You adapt them. That's why I keep saying Jeet Kune Do doesn't exist. It's Bruce Lee's expression of the limited Wing Chun he knew. That being said, what we teach people in the beginning is centerline. A lot of Wing Chun people will tell you that you have to have your elbow right on centerline, aligned with your wrist. And I've argued for years, does that mean that obese people cannot do Wing Chun because they can't bring their lines in? I'm getting bigger and fatter. Over the years, I'm tighter. My muscles are getting tighter. I'm wider. I'm 5'7", 229 pounds. I lift heavy. My lats are tight. My chest is thick. I can't get that center line in, right? What about women with larger breasts? And they're not able. So with the Wing Chun center line purists, they want you to believe that, and always on this, always on center. William Chung calls it center line and central line, right? There's two. This is the eliminated. What this guy is saying, and I'm going to agree with him, is when you are constantly trying to go down somebody's center line, the imaginary line that divides their body in half, you're going to run into trouble because that's where chasing hand comes into place. That's where angling comes into place, and you can't handle either one of them, either somebody angling on you because all they have to do is divert their body for a second, right? If I got my first form tumbler and the one is the center line and I turn and you're chasing that center line, you're screwed, right? Oh, there's the center line. Oh, then it turned. Now we're talking center line and central line. And then the problem is what about you? Your center line is facing, but then you turn. Your center line's going that way. So the William Chung lineage confuses everybody with the central line. Here's the deal. It's your fucking spine. It's your spine. Anywhere on this cylinder is going to have a spine right through it. There's the front of the spine. 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 And when you start chasing somebody's spine as their center line, that's where you learn to take balance and protect yours. So already I see where he's going, and he's correct because bad Wing Chun teaches this. But again, it's how you teach it. If you go to a Wing Chun class for a year, you're probably not going to get this. You have to train to stay focused on centerline for 10,000 repetitions of a strike. Well, when you get bored and you want to go learn Jeet Kune Do or MMA, well, that's why that works, this doesn't. I couldn't make Wing Chun work because you didn't fucking stay around and practice long enough, and you didn't have a teacher who was going to articulate it well enough. That's why I say Wing Chun should never, ever, ever be somebody's first martial art. Shouldn't.
And a whole bunch of boxes, but we're going to stick to the most commonly espoused basic outline of the theory, which is that controlling the center line allows you to hit vital areas such as the face, throat, solar plexus, and groin, but your opponent can't hit any of yours.
Yeah, until they turn. And then, yeah, the opponent could hit every single one of yours, because if you're doing what he says, which, again, I'm defending him, he's actually right on this shit, your center line's always going to be exposed, and you're always going to be facing the person, and you won't know how to use your center of gravity in your spine. This is why spine is the center. It's the column. It's the rod that goes through your head, down your spine, out your ass, into the ground. This is I'm so glad that you recommended this video, because gets a lot of Wing Chun guys fucked up.
Every lineage seems to have a slightly different take on centerline theory, so before you start screaming in the comments about how my terminology is wrong, understand that your lineage might just be an outlier.
Yeah, but your idea is right. I'm defending you.
Unfortunately, no matter the particulars of how you define centerline theory, it's nonsense and it is a useless concept for hand-to-hand. To understand why centerline theory is a fake, bad way of thinking, let's first understand where it is applicable, which is primarily in weapons combat. Specifically, longsword. If we're longsword fighting, most of my attacks will involve crossing the centerline to some degree. If my opponent's weapon occupies the centerline, any attack where my sword crosses that line can't actually hit my opponent. All they have to do is advance their weapon forward to completely stifle my strikes. If I move my weapon down or take my hands off the center line to sneak around their weapon, they can deliver a devastating strike down the center line. Even if they
weapons training is pretty much nothing more than a continuation of your own limbs into an object that was created to be an extension of you. So everything you're saying, to be honest, is completely and 100% applicable. Come on, man. Let me defend you. I'm trying to defend you. Everything you're saying is completely applicable to empty hands.
they first defend my strike, their weapon is still closer to the center, giving them effective control of the...
Yeah, that's just distance, dude. I get it. I see what you're... It gives you distance. The weapon's going to give you... It's a 3 or 4 foot razor blade. Yeah. What you're talking about there, if you okay. It's just, if you remove that from your hands, it's the exact same body mechanics. But nobody would punch like that, so I see what you're saying.
Main avenue of attack. Now, this sounds like it completely confirms Centerline as a valid theory and a good way to fight. However, this concept has virtually no application outside of weapons combat. To understand why, we need to look at the differences between a longsword fight and a fist fight. First of all, punches don't come down the center line. Punches originate from your shoulders, neither of which are on the center line.
That's part of the reason, too, why you get as close to possible in Wing Chun, right? It's the only theory that I back up with, because you wouldn't punch somebody like this. It's stupid. But if it's just shortest distance between 2 points is a straight line, and it's faster. Not to mention that we don't punch like this. We actually we turn in Wing Chun, so it comes completely off my center line. God, I wish more fucking Wing Chun people would teach properly. Just my 2 cents.
A strike from my shoulder to my opponent's face is not necessarily going to intersect the center line at all.
If you turn, it does, buddy. If you shift, and that's what Wing Chun shift does, right? So here's my straight punch out here, but if I turn, I'm on center. That's all it is. It's just a turn that's rotating the axis.
In longsword, both of my hands are on the weapon, which splits the difference between my shoulders, putting it in the middle of my body, and roughly on the center line. Most of my sword strikes will naturally be pretty close to the center line. My punches, however, will naturally be off of it. This means that my opponent can't just press forward to stifle punches. They have to actually move their hands, which is going to constantly...
That's bad Wing Chun. Again, so we don't chase. Here's where the center line is. As you know, that guy's throwing it out. We're coming right down the middle. I hope you actually check my channel out. We talk about 2 objects trying to occupy the same space at the same time, cutting off, angling, going right down, and actually the strike is the defense, right? In Wing Chun, we have the simultaneous attack and defense theory, where people think it's like a tan sao and a punch, which is bullshit. No, it's a punch, because by attacking, you are defending. So that's not something that we would ever teach a block. We would teach to turn, angle, and take the center of gravity. In my school, center line becomes just the center of gravity. I mean, like if I'm standing like this, my center line is facing that way, right? No, my center line's facing you because it's my spine, and people know that. So I'm really glad you brought this up.
Force their hands off the center line. In longsword, this doesn't matter because there's no other weapon that can take advantage of that opening. Their only weapon is trapped on the outside. However, in a fist fight, my other hand can quickly exploit that gap they just created. Their ability to counter on the center line is also greatly reduced when compared with weapons combat. When I throw a strike, virtually all of my main center line targets leave the center line.
Okay, but that's a boxing strike, or however that is. So you're not wrong. You're not wrong. It's just the different mechanics of a strike, right? So in Wing Chun, we stay kind of flat-footed. We keep a 50-50 weight distribution. We don't lean because we don't want to break that spinal alignment for structure. I talk about it like all the time with like a tripod. We don't want that to be bent over. Like here, you're in a good position to, you're continuing that forward weight going forward. A good grappler can rip you right out of your stance. So that's not what a Wing Chun punch would be. Again, I'm not trying to disrespect you at all. I think somebody showed you some pretty shitty Wing Chun.
Centerline, which means that a direct centerline attack won't actually hit anything vital. If a sword strike comes down to my shoulder, I'm as good as dead. However, a punch landing on my shoulder won't even get my attention. And if
that was a bad Tansao strike. Is that no? I don't mean to be an asshole. Is that the person who's showing you Wing Chun? Please don't.
Comes down to my shoulder, I'm as good as dead. However, a punch landing.
Is this the person who's teaching you Wing Chun? If that was, they should be turning to get an extension and turn this. And Tan Sao and Da punch is just a display technique that we give to illustrate the simultaneous attack and defense nature of Wing Chun. You would never use that in a fight, but it starts here and it turns, and you got to get some turn on there. So let's just say that's the person teaching you Wing Chun. They're wrong.
Landing on my shoulder won't even get my attention. And if you defend a strike and then attempt to track my head movement with your counterattack, where are your hands? Not on the center line, that's for sure. It would have been quick.
If you didn't chase the hand though, and you chase the core, we teach a concept: look at nothing, see everything, right? So we don't look at people's eyes; we actually look at the sternum, which gives you full peripheral vision, and we're always focused on that. Which again, teaches you chasing the center line and the core, right, the spine. So we would never wind up chasing a hand like that. I'm not trying to be disrespectful. Hopefully, you will check my channel out, but you didn't get exposure to good Wing Chun at all.
Quicker and easier to block an attack if your hands had started off the center line. Finally, the biggest reason that Wing Chun's idea of center line is unrealistic is because constantly controlling the center line isn't even a concept in longsword. I purposely chose to demonstrate a longsword guard that most closely resembles a Wing Chun guard. But
they look nothing like the same. I know you said most closely.
Longsword guard.
You're front heavy. You're almost. That's a 70-30 weight. Is that Philip Bayer? I think that might be Philip Bayer on the left before he lost his hand. It kind of looks like his profile. And then you're looking at that's not is that an Italian hand and a half sword? I don't know what that is. And that's a front heavy stance. Oh, okay.
That most closely resembles a Wing Chun guard. But the vast majority of longsword guards seem to give very little thought to controlling the center line. This is because the actual lesson of center line is not that you can command it. The lesson is to constantly use footwork to reposition it. If my opponent's weapon is on the center line, they haven't won.
Yeah, I agree with you on that. You always want to. Your route is always going to change. It doesn't stand right there. That's some of the stupidest stuff that a lot of Wing Chun guys do. So yeah, you want to constantly reposition it. And if you reposition it, you can't chase that physical center line. So we're in agreement.
One, because I'm not dumb enough to lunge directly at their sword. I'm going to engage them and then use lateral movement to change where the center line is. By taking a quick step, I've now created a new center line that I control. But they are.
So we do the same thing. William Chung's lineage does have blind side stepping. Duncan Leung's first, before he did applied Wing Chun, he actually had it was like the way it was explained to me, and I'm sure I'm going to get it wrong, was they did a stomp and then they stepped off to the side, because the concept was to stomp all the points of your foot in the ground, opened up certain meridians for power, and it was an explosive step off side to wind up. You see a lot of them do it where they come on the side with that high-low gansao. So it is angling. Again, it's empty sword hand. It's empty hands without weapons in it and angling.
Of course, then going to do the same thing. The center line is not a static fortification. It's an ever-shifting positional advantage that nobody ever keeps for more than a second. And guards so often ignore center line because keeping your weapon that close to your opponent is a terrible way to generate power. And whether I'm attempting to cut through heavy gambeson or crack somebody in the jaw, generating power solely by stepping into your strike often fails to do sufficient damage. Being able to move your arms or swing your weapon is critical in delivering a meaningful strike. And I'm sure some nerd out there is thinking, but boxers keep their hands in front of their face. Isn't that basically the same thing as guarding the center line? No, they don't actually care about the line. Putting your hands in front of your face creates defensive traffic, which means you're occupying the space that your opponent wants to punch through. But
by definition, that means they're protecting their center line.
this is a very different concept from centerline theory. If I put my hands here, I have a perfectly legitimate guard, and neither of my hands are on the center line. My opponent's punches could reasonably be coming from
I get that, but the difference between this guard and this, I mean, my guard is probably about here, but I'm creating so that it's visual too, right? I don't want you really seeing me. I don't want you seeing me, right? It's for visual purposes. It's a triangle. There's a lot of reasons that we wind up doing it, but I mean, it's not for. Yeah, you got shown some real shit Wing Chun.
Anywhere, which means I can't guard a single plane. I have to guard a whole three-dimensional area, and my hands can start from pretty much anywhere in that space. You see plenty of combat sports athletes with their hands vaguely in front of their face, but virtually none of them put their hands on a line because putting them on that line makes it difficult to.
That's the problem. It's a display stance, and even I was guilty of it a long time ago. You know, it's not it. My not to mention the fact, like, the older I get too, my arms are tired the longer I'm out here, right? So they are out here, but they're still on center. You know, they're still on center, and it's just, I feel more comfortable there because I've done the thousands and thousands and thousands of hours turning and putting hip and step and elbow into a strike that fires from a certain position. Plus, I did this. I was a wrestler for all of my adolescence, and we didn't wrestle. This wasn't my stance. This was my stance as a wrestler. My hands were still on center line.
Guard the rest of the three-dimensional area. Within unarmed striking, I have only ever seen one single practical application of the centerline concept, and that's to get off of it. Most commonly, it's the idea that you should move your head off the centerline when throwing an attack in order to preemptively slip your opponent's counterpunch. It's usually abbreviated with the simple instruction, get your head offline. The only thing opponents
and we don't do that because you're and this is just our thing, right? Your entire structure's gone. You have no structure, nothing. And if you land a hit, great. This is what I talk about recovery all the time. If you have a person who's standing in a more of a 50-50 stance with their spinal alignment shot, and you got him right next to him, right straight, and he throws a punch, and then he throws a punch, his recovery, in other words, his ability to reset to a position that will allow him to fire another strike from wherever he lands with the same maximum amount of power is not as quickly recovered, returned, reset, pick your R, as somebody who's in a 50-50 stance with a neutral spine with their hands in line. That's all it is. That's all it is. Your spine is offline, and you're going to be looking for, people are going to be looking to take advantage of that.
Punch. It's usually abbreviated with the simple instruction, get your head offline. The only thing any fighter needs to know about the center line is to get off of it. Continuously controlling and advancing on the center line is actually a technical error that can be exploited.
If A gets too aggressive and focuses too much on that center line, B can step off the line and catch him with a check hook as he comes in.
If you have a different legitimate use of
that's the Lung Ting lineage when they do that it looks like the straight blast, you know, that centerline punch where ours is a theory, theirs is a technique. Yeah, I've said it. There's videos of me saying it. The easiest way to destroy a centerline punch is to step off line, 100%.
Of the centerline concept being used in combat sports, put it in the comments below. But for the rest of you, please stop talking about centerline theory because you're probably using it wrong.
Okay. Hey, I appreciate that. I like your channel. Give him a sub. I think guys like this are the future of martial arts and Armchair Violence. Armchair Violence is at 11,000.4 subscribers. Let's get that up. Let's look at some other stuff he does. Hang on a second here. I want to give him proper props. I don't not like his content. You know what I like about him is he's fucking opinionated. he's got the balls to go against the grain, so I like him. Oh, he's sparring Icy Mike. Is he so? Okay, so he's one of Icy Mike's friends, if you will. Okay, and these guys, I don't mind these guys. These guys are all right. Here's the deal: if guys like Icy Mike, this guy, and whoever else are criticizing my art, Wing Chun, isn't it my responsibility to put my fucking money where my mouth is and kind of explain it or demonstrate it or show it to where they can at least go, okay. I mean, the video that I did with Elan talking about the Wing Chun debate, I know that I didn't change his mind, but I gave him something to think about, right? So it's unlike the JKD guys who won't debate me on shit, Thomas Marks, or anybody else. It's our responsibility if somebody's going to challenge something, have a good response. And I'm not going to look at this guy's stuff and go, oh, you don't know what you're talking about. No, man, the Wing Chun that's been passed around to him and all these other people, man, it's not fair. And we in the Wing Chun community are the only ones to blame. And that's because nobody is telling your students when they come in, listen, you know, this art is going to take minimum 3 years for you to be extremely proficient at it. Yeah, you'll be a faster fighter doing boxing, wrestling, maybe Brazilian jiu-jitsu. That's fine. But if you take somebody who does Wing Chun and you delve them into Naptown's philosophy, Indianapolis Wing Chun's philosophy, Syed's philosophy, my philosophy, guarantee you if they put that dedication in, even Justin Ock's philosophy, Sifu walked down in Florida. There's a lot of guys, right? And they wound up doing that. And I know I'm Chris Collins, for the love of God. I'm sorry. I don't want to name all you guys because I'm going to be, what about me? There's so many of you guys out there. They're going to be extremely proficient as fighters. It's just there is a ton of theory in our art that does piss people off, and it does make them just quit and do whatever. But that's why I keep saying we're the graduate school of martial arts. Wing Chun is a very, very, very advanced martial art that's supposed to be simple, but it's not. No, Wing Chun is simple, but it's not easy, right? Centerline theory. What the fuck does that mean? See, centerline, right there, we're confusing people. Right there, we're talking about centerline, and here's a guy who brings up valid points about what the bastardization is of it. So that's why I keep saying it's like I've been doing Wing Chun for this is my 26th year. 26 years now going into it in January. And I'm still discovering stuff. I'm like, holy shit, my body is giving me new information. So yeah, I really hope, and I know that I deliver things a little bit abrasively, but I hope when other channels see this kind of stuff, it gives them some kind of credibility. And they're like, oh, okay, I understand that. And yeah, I'm hoping to, you know what, maybe we start going to schools and pleasantly, I'm not challenging anybody any fucking more, but I'd like to wind up really sharing what we do, and hopefully that makes a difference for everybody. All right, guys, I appreciate that. Jay, thanks for the suggestion on that. That's awesome. You guys keep them coming, and I'll see you in the next video.